The September 2026 pension update hasn't happened yet, but the decisions you make between now and then could determine whether you receive more money, less money, or no increase at all when it does. Most Australian pensioners are waiting. They're assuming September is when the change becomes relevant. And that assumption, that quiet, comfortable assumption, is exactly how people end up on the wrong side of a pension update that was always meant to help them. What you do right now, in the weeks and months before September, positions you either to benefit from these changes or to miss them entirely. The pension system rewards people who prepare early. It quietly disadvantages people who wait. Today we are going to walk through exactly what the September 2026 pension update involves, why it's already affecting your finances right now, and the specific actions you need to take before September arrives to make sure you are in the best possible position when it does. Let's start with how the age pension update cycle actually works, because most Australians misunderstand it completely. The Australian age pension is not a fixed amount. It is reviewed and adjusted twice a year, in March and in September. These adjustments are not optional. They're built into the legislation, and they're designed to ensure that pension payments keep pace with changes in the cost of living and in average wages. The September adjustment in particular tends to be significant because it follows the completion of the financial year, when the full weight of inflation data, wage growth figures, and changes to the consumer price index are incorporated into the new payment rates and the new income and assets test thresholds. When the September update takes effect, two things typically change. First, the actual payment rates may increase, meaning the amount of age pension paid each fortnight goes up. Second, and this is the part that most people completely miss, the income test thresholds and the assets test thresholds are also updated. These are the limits that determine whether you receive the full pension, a part pension, or no pension at all. And here is the critical insight. Changes to the thresholds don't just affect new applicants. They affect every current pensioner whose financial position sits near those boundaries. If the assets test threshold rises in September, some Australians who were just above the limit, and therefore receiving no pension or a reduced pension, may suddenly find themselves below the new threshold and newly eligible for payments they weren't receiving before. This is why September matters, even to people who already have a pension. And this is why what you do before September matters more than what you do after. Here's what most Australians don't realize about the window between now and September. The assets test and the income test don't just measure your situation on a single day. They measure your situation as assessed by Centrelink based on the information you provided. And if your financial situation has changed, if you've sold assets, drawn from super, received income, or had any other change in your financial position, your Centrelink record needs to reflect your current reality before the September thresholds take effect. Here's why this timing matters so much. Imagine your assets are currently sitting just above the current assets test threshold. Under the current rules, you receive no age pension or a very reduced one. In September, the threshold rises, and at the new threshold, your current assets would place you comfortably below the limit, making you eligible for a meaningful pension payment. But if Centrelink's record of your assets doesn't accurately reflect your current position, if you haven't updated your record with changes that have occurred in recent months, then when September comes and the new thresholds apply, Centrelink may still be assessing you based on outdated information. The result? You miss an entitlement you were eligible for, not because you didn't qualify, but because your record wasn't current. This is one of the most common and most preventable sources of pension underpayment in Australia, and it happens at every September update. Let's now talk about the income test, because this one operates differently, and the misunderstanding around it costs people real money. The income test for the age pension does not only measure your employment income, it measures assessed income, which includes returns from financial investments assessed under a set of rules called Deeming. Deeming means Centrelink assumes your financial assets are earning a certain rate of return, regardless of what they're actually earning. The deeming rates themselves are reviewed and adjusted by the government periodically, and when deeming rates change, or when the income test thresholds change in September, the assessed income that Centrelink calculates for your financial assets changes as well. Even if your actual bank balance and investments haven't moved at all, your assessed income under the income test can shift. This creates a situation that surprises people every update cycle. Someone whose pension rate was calculated based on one set of deeming assumptions may find that their assessed income has changed, and their pension entitlement has changed with it, without them having done anything at all. If that change works in your favor, you'll receive a higher pension payment automatically, assuming your Centrelink record is accurate and up to date. If your record is not current, you may not receive the adjustment you are entitled to until you contact Centrelink and provide updated information. The lesson here is consistent. The update comes to you automatically only if your information is accurate. If there are gaps or outdated details in your Centrelink record, the update cannot be properly applied to your situation. Now here's the part that surprises people who are not yet on the pension at all, and this is the real hidden opportunity in the September 2026 update. If you are currently over age pension eligibility age, but have not yet applied, perhaps because your assets or income previously placed you above the eligibility threshold, the September update may change your eligibility status entirely. When the thresholds rise in September, people who were just over the limit under the old thresholds may fall below the limit under the new ones. And if they haven't applied, they won't receive a single dollar of the pension they become entitled to, not because Centrelink failed to tell them, but because the system doesn't proactively find you when you become eligible. You have to come to it. This is a group of Australians who could be leaving real money on the table, not because of financial decisions they made, but simply because they never checked whether updated thresholds changed their eligibility. If you or someone you know is past age pension age, owns their home, and has assets or income that previously placed them above the threshold, this is the moment to re-examine that position in light of where the September thresholds are likely to land. And here is the third insight, the one about timing that almost nobody discusses. Certain financial decisions made between now and September can directly affect your pension position when the new thresholds take effect. Consider superannuation withdrawals. If you are over age pension age and considering drawing from your super, whether as a lump sum or as an increased income stream, the timing of that decision relative to September matters. A lump sum withdrawal from super reduces your super balance. Your super balance, as assessed by Centrelink, is part of your assets test position. If a withdrawal brings your assets below the updated September threshold, you may become eligible for a pension or for a higher pension that you wouldn't have received if you had left your balance unchanged. The same logic applies to the sale of assets, to gifts made to family members under the gifting rules, and to changes in how your money is invested between asset types that are assessed differently under the assets test. None of these decisions should be made purely for pension optimization, without considering the full financial picture. But understanding that these decisions interact with September's threshold changes and that timing matters, means you can make them more deliberately and with better outcomes. This is the planning window that most Australians don't know exists, and it closes when September arrives. Let's see how this plays out in one specific situation. Consider a woman. We'll call her Frances. She's 69. She and her husband own their home outright. They have a combined assets position that has historically sat just above the assets test threshold for a couple, which has meant they receive no age pension. They've been living on their super and their savings. Frances heard that September brings pension changes, but she assumed it was only relevant to people already on the pension, that it would mean a higher payment for them, not a new eligibility moment for her. She didn't check her position. She didn't update her Centrelink record, which still reflected their financial situation from over a year ago when they last spoke to Services Australia. She didn't review what the September threshold changes might mean for their specific assets position. In September, the assets test threshold for home-owning couples rises. Under the new threshold, Frances and her husband's assets, which haven't significantly changed, now fall comfortably below the limit. But because Frances never lodged a claim, and because Centrelink doesn't proactively reach out to people who may now be eligible, the payment doesn't start automatically. She doesn't find out until a friend mentions it 3 months later. She lodges a claim in December. The pension can be backdated, but only to the date of the claim, not to September when she first became eligible. 3 months of pension entitlement. Gone. Not because she wasn't eligible, because she didn't know to act. If Frances had reviewed her position before September and submitted a claim in August, even a precautionary one, she would have been in the system at the right moment. The 3 months of payments she lost represent real money, and the situation was entirely preventable. So what should you actually do right now, before September, to make sure you're in the best position possible? The first action is to check your Centrelink record and confirm that your current assets and income are accurately reflected. Log into your MyGov account. Go to your Centrelink online account and review your income and assets details. If anything has changed in the past 12 months, a super balance that has changed, an investment sold, income that has started or stopped, update your record now. The second action is to understand roughly where your current assets and income sit relative to the current thresholds, and consider where they might sit relative to September updated thresholds. You don't need exact September figures to do this planning. What you need is an understanding of your general position. Are you comfortably below the threshold, well above it, or sitting near the boundary where a threshold change could make a meaningful difference? If you're near the boundary, this is the most important pre-September action you can take. Contact a financial advisor or call Services Australia and describe your situation. Ask specifically how the upcoming September review could affect your eligibility or your payment rate. This is a question they can answer, and the answer is worth knowing before September, not after. The third action, and this specifically applies to people who are pension age but not currently receiving a pension because they believe they were over the threshold, is to consider lodging a claim before September. A claim can be assessed, and if you're not currently eligible, you simply won't receive a payment. But if September's thresholds make you eligible, having a claim in place from before September may protect your entitlement date. Speak to Services Australia about this specifically. Ask what the implications are of lodging a claim now versus waiting until after September. They can advise you on your specific situation. The fourth action is to review any financial decisions we've been considering and think about their timing relative to September. A superannuation withdrawal, a property settlement, an asset sale, a gift to family under the gifting provisions. Each of these interactions with the assets and income tests in ways that may be more favorable when considered alongside the September threshold changes rather than in isolation. This is planning, not reckless restructuring, not gaming the system, simply making deliberate decisions with full awareness of how the rules interact, which is exactly what the rules were designed to allow you to do. The broader truth about the September 2026 pension update is this: every Australian pensioner and every Australian who is eligible age but not yet receiving a pension is affected by the September update in some way. For some, it means a higher fortnightly payment. For some, it means new eligibility they didn't have before. For some, it means a window to make financial decisions that are better aligned with their updated pension position. The system is designed to adjust. The thresholds move, the payment rates change, the opportunities shift. And the people who benefit most from these adjustments are consistently the people who understand them in advance, not the people who discover them after the fact. Frances lost 3 months of pension payments because she didn't know to act before September. The good news is that you now know. You have the time. The window is open. If today's information raised questions about your specific situation, your assets position, your eligibility, your Centrelink record, put them in the comments below. I read every one of them. And if you want a detailed breakdown of exactly how the assets test threshold change in September might affect your specific position, that is coming in the next video. Your retirement deserves a compass, not guesswork.